What's going on, everybody? This is dkdynamite, and this morning we're going to be talking about Treyarch's official response to the latest controversy in the community. Definitely stay tuned. But before we jump into that, I just wanted to let you know that every day this week I'm going to be live streaming in the morning as we count down to what could be an official reveal of Season 1 Reloaded. We're all awaiting a blog post, a roadmap, and obviously a gameplay trailer, especially for DLC 1, which is Citadel Day More. I'll have plenty of videos going up later this week. Make sure you guys have notifications on. But with that being said, this all started from a tweet from T-Captain over on Twitter. He went ahead and said, "I actually didn't realize how slow and clunky some of these basic movements are compared to MW19. So in the video below, you could see a very clear comparison between Black Ops 6 and Modern Warfare." He then follows up with, "I love Omni movement, but what's the point if all the core movement mechanics are super slow and cause absurd weapon sway? Call of Duty is not a milsim. Every attempt to become more realistic has resulted in lower player counts. The casual player is probably barely scratching the surface of utilizing Omni movement, but these movements shown here are the ones that 90% of the player base use frequently, and that's what feels slow or clunky. Fixing this is incredibly simple. Speed up crouch and prone speeds, remove all weapon sway, bobbing when jumping, or sliding, decrease general aim sway as well, or speed up other basic mechanics like reloads, plating, mantling, or you can even decrease visual recoil to MW19 standards. If those changes were made, plus servers improved, plus prevalent bugs fixed, this will mean Warzone thrives." I actually have quite a bit to say about this tweet, and what I'll say real quickly before we mention what the response was from Treyarch is that this is clearly catered more towards around Warzone. Not that T-Captain doesn't probably also want these changes in multiplayer, but this is an opinion that I don't necessarily agree with as far as how the movement goes. And I also think if you look at the recent stats, which is that Black Ops 6 broke just about every record, I don't think the player count is going to decrease because of the changes that Treyarch have made. And I think what Omni movement represents is probably going to be the staple for Call of Duty, at least for the next couple of years, regardless. But Matt Scrantz, an associate director of design over at Treyarch, who's done a phenomenal job with multiplayer in my opinion, is also one of the nicest people to talk to at some of the capture events. He went ahead and responded with the following. He said, "Once prone and crouch speeds become too fast, you end up with mismatch between first and third person POVs, leading to snaking, which has been a massive problem in the past. Faster is not always healthier for the overall game experience. I've never personally been a fan of spamming jump during combat, so when we intentionally designed Omni movement mechanics, we adjusted sway and bob when jumping by default to ensure that wasn't the most effective tactic during engagements. If you want to spam jump while shooting, we have perks and attachments to increase effectiveness, just like we do for slide and dive. All that said, we're always looking at feedback data and discussing how our internal opinions across partner studios on how the game is playing in order to continue making improvements." Now, there's tons of replies after this tweet that I also want to address later in this video, but clearly, based on this tweet, they're going to listen to fan feedback, and I think it's not worth ruling out the possibility that movement could be adjusted in specific game modes. Maybe it feels faster in zombies and a bit faster in Warzone, but stays the slowest for multiplayer. Maybe it'll be a system one day where the movement will just about be in the same ballpark as what you'll see in other modes, but still will have adjustments that are more appropriate for the style of play in Battle Royale or in multiplayer or in PvE zombies, etc. But I love the fact that Matt mentioned snaking, because that was for sure an issue that we saw over the last few years, and I know people are probably going to say, well, just because Matt isn't a fan of spamming jump during combat, why is it the entire community has to be quote-unquote punished for that? Well, there's obviously data to also back that up. It's not a case of, okay, one developer or one lead designer doesn't like something, that means that the entire game is going to change. There has to be a collective agreement behind the scenes with lots of people that say, hey, yeah, this kind of makes sense, we have data to back it up, let's make this change. Now, is it possible to snake in BO6? I believe so, and I know Matt also mentioned perks and attachments that can help your movement speeds, but here's what I'll say, right? When it comes to Modern Warfare movement, obviously you can see from the gameplay for yourself, yeah, it was a bit snappier, right? The movement was clearly faster when it came to holding a weapon, but the thing about movement in Modern Warfare that I've never understood is that clearly, for the most part, movement was practically broken in that game, right? There was a lot of bugs and exploits with stim shots, with slide canceling. People abused that quite a bit, and I know Modern Warfare 2 walked back on just about all of it, but MW3 from Sledgehammer, in my opinion, was the most watered down and balanced version of the MW19 movement that nobody out there in the world had a problem with. And yes, I will get back to the movement in Warzone in just a few minutes, because maybe they shouldn't make sure that Warzone integrates completely with the new premium COD every year, but Black Ops 6 is Black Ops 6, right? I don't think anybody out there really has an issue with the movement when you play campaign, MP, or zombies, but Warzone is where that conversation happens. I'm not saying that that the devs should also just bend the knee when they see a tweet online and say, all right, let's make that change next update. They should stick to their vision. That's another point I wanted to make, is devs sticking to their vision is really important, but there's also a line you draw with that, because I feel like Modern Warfare 2 is a prime example of Infinity Ward really wanting to stick to their vision, but having to eventually bend the knee a little bit to an issue that everybody out there had a problem with. For example, the mini-map. I think even the perk package system that game had was fairly controversial, but was a system that I respected them sticking to their vision to. I'm like, whatever, fine. But when it came to a mini-map or other basic features that game was lacking, that's where they just had to say, you know what, we tried something, the whole community didn't agree with it, and they probably had data to prove that that was the case. But when you look at the movement changes with Black Ops 6, Omni movement aside, just looking at the speed of each part of the movement, I do feel like the way they designed it was taking all modes into account, and maybe that's the problem. You may have found the balance where, okay, this works perfectly in campaign or MP or zombies, but when you take Warzone into account, that's where I think it's a bit of a separate beast. I think Warzone obviously is going to remain somewhat integrated with all premium CODs going forward, at least with the leveling system, but I think movement could be one of those exceptions where maybe, for example, yeah, they could have integrated all the Black Ops 6 weapons and your progression, prestige, but what if they just kept MW3 movement in the game? Am I saying that I don't want Omni movement in Warzone? No, I think Omni movement has a place in Warzone and it's fun, but I think we're probably going to create this issue every single year where, okay, Warzone's about to integrate with a new premium COD, which means bringing forth all of that game's movements, mechanics, and other features, which may actually be quote-unquote a step back from what Warzone already offered. So I think even when a new premium COD offers innovation, that could be looked at as a step forward for the game itself, but may not always be a step forward for the free-to-play Warzone integration. Now, for all we know, we don't have the data in front of us. It could really just be a minority of players that really liked Modern Warfare 19's movement. The data they have probably says, hey, the changes you made with BO6 are healthy, everybody loves it, everybody's utilizing the movement. Maybe the data that says, hey, people don't like what's going on with Omni movement is just for Warzone. I mean, who actually knows here? But transparency was really important when it comes to a discussion about movement. I really respect Matt Scrons for coming out and detailing as to why they made certain changes. Even Nadeshot backed them up, right? Matt Scrons lives and breathes COD, and with a few quality of life updates that we'll probably get over the next few seasons, I do believe movement will improve, as he believes, and I think those changes will carry over into Warzone, which is where I think most of the controversy is at. After looking at the responses to Matt's tweet, though, it really does look like everybody that disagrees with what he said is on the train that MW19 is the best COD of all time, and that Warzone viewership as of now is at an all-time low. That's a discussion for a different video in my opinion, because I do believe Warzone viewership for a new integration is probably best when there's a new Battle Royale map, not necessarily a new Resurgence map, but obviously other issues will also factor into that. But honestly, it seems like if the community remains happy with how the movement works in MP and Zombies, that will probably be the staple and honestly the movement standard for just about every COD going forward. The question will be, will Warzone follow suit and also continue the same movement integrations every year, or will Warzone just kind of evolve and grow on its own and develop its own movement system so that it could still integrate with premium CODs for content, but may not necessarily feel exactly like the game's multiplayer or other modes? Now, after looking at some additional replies, I think it's pretty clear, or two things are pretty clear actually. One, you're always going to have devs that probably don't want to go ahead and respond to certain criticism in the community, because you may start seeing some rude and hostile comments like we have here in this thread towards Matt Scrons. So again, I applaud Matt for actually putting out that tweet, because it actually takes some balls to do that considering the replies that he ended up getting afterwards. And I also believe that you're really never going to have a consensus in the COD community that everything is okay. I think you're always going to have differing opinions, but especially when it comes to movement, you're going to have a lot of people with data to back it up that personally like where Omni movement is at, and Activision will use that data when they work on the movement for future CODs to come. But you're also going to have a camp of people that just play Warzone and only use MP to grind their weapons and their camos before the integration every year. You're going to have people that really do want and have a different vision for the Warzone experience that doesn't really align that much with what the vision is for multiplayer. And guess what? Matt isn't in charge of Warzone, but obviously will pass feedback along to Raven so that changes could possibly be made to separate what's going on between MP and Warzone as far as movement goes. But that is about it. This has been dkdynamite. Leave your thoughts down below in the comment section. I'm really curious what you guys are thinking about the movement in BO6. I really haven't seen any comments complaining about it, but hey, maybe I should recheck some of the comments I got from my Warzone focus videos and see if people feel the way that some folks on Twitter do, let me know down below if you think any changes are going to come to how Omni movement does work. Will Warzone eventually be separated from the movement of a premium COD? And also, what do you think about Matt's response over in the replies? Really hope you've enjoyed, and peace out, everybody.